I knew my job, but the new manager thought he knew better, so I did it his way. Very precisely. So I used to work for one of the top delivery companies in the UK. There was a lot less competition 15 years ago. I was very good at my specific delivery job, and I often undertook every office task from single delivery routes to maintaining the office and delivery distribution to all routes. Then one day in comes the new manager, and it was the cliché that you dread. You probably all have met the type. Suit slightly too big and a trainee mustache. He had just finished uni and to his credit got himself a business degree. The problem with this company was every office around the whole country was run differently, and this poor manager was expecting every person to do things by the letter, but most of the work was done on goodwill since we were allowed to finish for the day when we had completed our deliveries. It was creating a rod for our own backs tbh, but it was nice to finish earlier on lighter days. Finally, on his third day, after watching me daily and asking me why I was doing things in certain orders, I told him my delivery route was complex and required it to be done in a certain order to ensure the timed deliveries got there before 1 p.m. and the other delivery staff were fed their delivery materials by myself at certain times to ensure optimum delivery speeds and minimum delay. He replied, "No, it doesn't work like that." I simply stared for a bemused few seconds and said, "I don't understand." He wanted it by the letter today as per company guidelines. I argued very hard against it and said he will really regret it because we won't complete, but he insisted I was wrong because it was all timed and measured. So after an exasperated 15-minute heated discussion, I did as I was told. To the letter. The 5 staff I fed deliveries to weren't happy but understood. It was like a domino effect of carnage. At 12:30 p.m. we all rang in the office to report the failed time deliveries, which he promptly freaked out about because they were strictly monitored. The subsequent enforced break times and shuffling required also left 15 to 20% of each walk unfinished, which he also now has to complete himself on top of the timed ones. He had to fill out reports for all failed 1 p.m. deliveries, all walk failures, and then had to call in managers from other offices to finish it all. They all finished around 4 hours late. He was not popular. The next day he came to me, asked me to show him the mechanics of the delivery route in detail. Because, I didn't expect that to happen, if I'm honest. It was close enough to an apology for me grin. We actually became good friends over time, but he never questioned me when I said, "Nope, ever again." At least he appeared to have learned his lesson. You. Explains why you're doing things the way you are, as well as the consequences of not doing it that way. Him. Insists you do it differently, and experiences the consequences you explained. Also him. I didn't expect that to happen, if I'm honest. At least he learned from it instead of doubling down. This is a great example of a good boss in the making. High and mighty with his shiny degree, slamming suddenly into how the real world works. He might not be a leader per se, but he's showing the capacity to admit he was wrong and try to learn from a mistake. Maybe one day an actual apology, or even taking responsibility for problems. This is satisfying smile. Lol, when what you learned implodes because real life. Classic example. I remember training people for fueling aircraft. The training videos were all one way, but the actual work was completely different. Every time I would train the new guy, I would say, "Everything you just learned, forget about it." Then we would show him the right way. Frankly, this is a good experience for all involved, particularly the new manager. He learned why something was done a particular way, and he'll wait to learn and gain more experience before suggesting or imposing new procedures. Looks like the book needed an update. I'm pleased he didn't turn around and blame you somehow. Or keep insisting for more than one terrible day. Still very satisfying to have his way crumble to ash when you obliged him. The fresh out sometimes have to learn that what looks good on paper does not actually work, transform into reality. Unless there is decent amount of research done. At least in this case. There was no Armageddon. Just a quick learning experience. Gotta work out how the boat floats before you go rocking it. Everyone comes in thinking they are going to cut waste, increase efficiency, and raise profits. And sure, there's always room for improvement. But first day in the job you're useless until you learn the processes and why things are done that way. Chances are, there's a good reason it's done that way. Now after you've been on the job for a couple of months and you understand the system, then you can start making changes and see how that goes. One of the best pieces of advice I was ever given when starting a new job was, don't start suggesting changes until you fully understand why things are done in a certain way. I've seen other people go blundering in, full of good intentions, self-importance, only to be proven wrong. It's also a fantastic way to annoy everyone you now work with. You should do it this way, instead of, why don't we do it this way? Classic. I would always defer to experience more than hierarchy. Fuck procedures written by pencil pushers. He wasn't approaching it from the right place. But I feel like he stumbled upon the better approach. You should be engaging in a department-wide malicious compliance by doing everything by the letter. If that's causing delivery problems, then the company should 1. Hire more people, 2. Change their policies, or 3. Give more autonomy down the chain, or a combination of them. Doing things outside policy just to meet expectations is just hiding the problem for the benefit of the company at your own expense. This reminds me of a common problem with engineers right out of college. And a joke with engineers in general. Which is that the math they do is for their own little world. My dad was a programmer for blast furnaces at sand and garbage dumps for over a decade on his own. And another decade prior where he learned and specialized. He would always tell stories of arguments with resident engineers that had it all mathed out and would get snippy when he pointed out that it wasn't possible. Pipes in the way, too close to the furnace to run properly, etc. When I went to school for drafting, my goal was to become an engineer, so I'd stand out for not making those mistakes because the engineers draw it on a napkin and draftsmen make it look pretty. All of my professors and even the engineers at my internship laughed and wholeheartedly agreed. As a delivery driver in the USA for a large brown truck company, this makes me happy. Most of our direct supervisors have no true experience doing our jobs. Sure, they cover routes when there is no other option. But our union is so strong not many people want to leave the delivery job for management. A lot of our supervisors get on their high horse due to how their bosses tell them to work. But the good ones don't. When we get new supervisors, a lot of the time they try to flex their knowledge of how things should be done and end up running into this problem. Once they figure out that the people who've been doing it for years have a good idea of what they are doing, it gets better. What qualities of leadership management makes a person think this way? I want to know so I don't act or do anything in this way. Quite common where I am. One of my housemates started her master's degree immediately after getting her undergrad. Her degree was a generic degree in business studies and wasn't very marketable, and had no work experience. She had loads of assignments that required work experience, know-how, so I would spend at least an hour explaining to her what the questions wanted, how to go about answering it, to make it seem she knew what she was doing, and what she had to do. Some assignment required her to do things like come up with a list of questions for surveys, interviews, etc. The next day he came to me, asked me to show him the mechanics of the delivery route in detail. Is exactly what should have been done first, but at least the new manager learned from the mistake. If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epicaricast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.